When I found out my brother stole my identity to buy an $23,000 house, I thought it was just about money. When my parents begged me to stay quiet, I thought they were trying to protect him from dangerous criminals. I was wrong about everything. The truth was so much worse than stolen money or family loyalty. The truth was that the three people I loved most in the world had been planning something terrible, something that would have ended my life if I hadn't discovered that loan by accident. But here's what I couldn't understand. Why would a family who raised me, loved me, and protected me for 22 years suddenly decide I was worth more dead than alive? And what kind of monsters can look you in the eye, call you family, and plan your murder at the same time? I'm sitting at my kitchen table right now, staring at a piece of paper that makes my hands shake every time I look at it. The bank statement shows a loan for $223,000 that I never took out. My name is Zara Chen, and 3 days ago, I thought my biggest problem was deciding what to make for dinner with the $5 left in my wallet. Let me tell you how this nightmare started. It was Tuesday morning, and I was getting ready for work. I teach second grade at Lincoln Elementary, which means I wake up at 6 every day to get to school early. I love my job, but let's be honest, teachers don't make a lot of money. I make $45,000 a year, which sounds okay until you realize that after taxes, rent, and student loans, I have about $50 left each month for fun stuff like food. I was eating cereal for breakfast when my phone rang. The caller ID said, First National Bank, and my heart dropped. Banks don't call with good news when you're living paycheck to paycheck. I almost didn't answer, but then I remembered I hadn't done anything wrong. My bills were paid. My tiny checking account wasn't overdrawn. What could they want? Hello, Miss Chen. The woman's voice was cheerful, almost excited. This is Linda from First National Bank. I'm calling to congratulate you on your new home purchase. How are you settling into your beautiful new house? I laughed. I actually laughed out loud. I think you have the wrong number, I said. I live in a tiny apartment, and I definitely didn't buy a house. I can barely afford my rent. There was a pause. I'm sorry, but I have your information right here. Zara Chen, apartment 4B on Oak Street. My smile disappeared. That was my address. Exactly right. Yes, that's me, but I didn't buy a house. I think there's been a mistake. Let me double check, Linda said. I could hear her typing. Social security number ending in... My blood went cold. That was my social security number. Ma'am, I need to verify some information. What's your mother's maiden name? I'm not giving you that information, I said. This is obviously some kind of scam. Miss Chen, I understand your concern, but I have all your loan documents right here. Your mother's maiden name is Wang, correct? I dropped my phone. Actually dropped it right onto my kitchen floor. How did she know that? How did she know my address? My social security number, my mother's maiden name. I picked up the phone with shaking hands. What loan documents? Your home loan, Miss Chen. For $23,000. You closed on the property last month. The address is 1247 Maple Ridge Drive. It's a beautiful 3-story house with a 2-car garage. You must be so excited. 1247 Maple Ridge Drive. I knew that address. My heart started beating so fast I thought I might pass out. Can you repeat that address? I whispered. 2047 Maple Ridge Drive. Is there a problem with the property? I hung up. I hung up without saying goodbye, without asking more questions, without doing anything except staring at my phone like it was a snake that might bite me. 1207 Maple Ridge Drive was where my brother Kai lived. He'd moved there just last month, telling everyone he'd gotten a great deal on rent. He said the owner was traveling and needed someone to house sit for a year. We'd all been so happy for him. Finally, our Kai was living somewhere nice. But it wasn't a rental. According to First National Bank, it was a house that I had bought, with money I didn't have, with credit I'd never used, for a life I wasn't living. I called Kai immediately. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Then it went to voicemail. Hey, it's Kai. I'm probably doing something awesome right now, so leave a message and I'll call you back when I'm done being amazing. I hung up and called again. Voicemail. I tried 5 more times. Every single call went straight to voicemail. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. I called the bank back. First National Bank. This is Linda. This is Zara Chen. I called a few minutes ago about a house loan. I need to know everything about this loan, right now. Of course, Miss Chen. Let me pull up your file. What she told me next made me grab my car keys and drive straight to Maple Ridge Drive. Because somehow there was a loan for $23,000 in my name. A house that belonged to my brother, and a family secret that was about to destroy everything I thought I knew about the people I loved most. The house was beautiful when I pulled up. 3 stories, perfect lawn, expensive cars in the driveway, cars I recognized. My parents' silver Honda was parked right next to Kai's black truck. They were all there, all of them, in the house I had supposedly bought. I sat in my car for 5 minutes, staring at that perfect house. My parents' car was there. Kai's truck was there. They were all inside the house that was somehow mine. But definitely not mine. My hands were still shaking as I walked up the stone pathway. Everything about this place screamed money. The fancy mailbox, the perfect flowers, the expensive front door with its shiny brass handle. This wasn't the kind of house a teacher could ever afford. This was the kind of house rich people lived in. I knocked on the door and waited. I could hear voices inside. Mom's nervous laugh, Dad's deep voice, and Kai talking fast, like he always did when he was in trouble. The voices got quiet when I knocked again. Nobody answered. I knocked harder. I know you're in there. I called out, I can hear you talking. Still nothing. That's when I remembered the spare key. Mom always kept a spare key under a fake rock by the front steps. She'd done it at every house we'd ever lived in. I found the fake rock right where I expected it to be. My heart was pounding as I put the key in the lock. This felt wrong. This felt like breaking into someone else's house. But the bank said it was my house, so maybe I had the right to walk inside. The door opened into the most beautiful kitchen I'd ever seen. Granite counters, shiny appliances, a huge island in the middle. Everything was perfect and clean and expensive. Surprise, I said, trying to sound normal even though nothing about this was normal. The talking stopped immediately. I heard a coffee mug hit the floor and break, then footsteps running toward the kitchen. Mom appeared first, her face white as paper. Zara, honey, what are you doing here? Then Dad came around the corner, looking like he'd seen a ghost. Sweetie, why are you? Finally, Kai walked in. He looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. His face was red, and he couldn't look me in the eyes. I'm here, I said, pulling the bank papers out of my purse, because apparently I bought this house. I slammed the papers on the beautiful granite counter. With money I don't have. Using credit I don't have. For a life I'm not living. The silence was so thick, I could barely breathe. Mom bent down to pick up the broken coffee mug pieces. Dad stared at the papers like they might catch fire. Kai just stood there, looking guilty. Someone needs to start talking, I said. Right now. Mom looked at Dad. Dad looked at Kai. Kai looked at the floor. I can explain, Kai finally said. You better start explaining, I said. Because right now, it looks like my own brother stole my identity to buy a house I can't afford. And somehow, Mom and Dad knew about it. That's when I saw something that broke my heart. Mom and Dad looked at each other with this look. Not surprise, not shock, but relief. Like they'd been waiting for this moment. Like they'd been preparing for it. They knew. They'd known all along. Sit down, sweetie, Dad said softly. There's a lot you don't understand. I don't want to sit down, I said. I want answers. How is there a loan for $23,000 in my name? How are you all living in a house that the bank says I bought? How long have you been lying to me? Mom started crying, real tears streaming down her face. We never wanted you to find out like this. Find out what? About the loan, Kai said quietly. About the house. About why we had to do it. Had to do it? I felt like I was in some kind of nightmare. You didn't have to steal my identity. You didn't have to ruin my credit. You didn't have to lie to me. You don't understand, Dad said. We were trying to protect you. Protect me? By committing fraud with my name? By keeping you safe, Mom whispered. By keeping all of us safe. I looked around the beautiful kitchen, at my family's guilty faces, at the broken coffee mug on the floor. Nothing made sense. My brother had stolen my identity to buy a house. My parents had helped him do it. And somehow, they thought they were protecting me. Safe from what? I asked. That's when they told me the first part of the truth. Not the whole truth. I wouldn't learn that until much later. But enough truth to make me understand that this wasn't just about money or houses or loans. This was about life and death. About dangerous people and threats I didn't know existed. About a brother who was in more trouble than I'd ever imagined. But even then, even as they started explaining, I could see in their eyes that they weren't telling me everything. There was still something bigger, something scarier, something they were keeping from me. And that something would change everything I thought I knew about my family forever. What they told me next changed everything I thought I knew about my family. We sat around the fancy dining table in the house that was supposedly mine. Mom kept twisting her hands together. Dad kept clearing his throat. Kai just stared at the table like it held all the answers. Tell me about these dangerous people, I said. Tell me why you had to steal my identity to keep me safe. Mom took a deep breath. Zara, there's something we never told you about Kai. About the trouble he got into 2 years ago. What kind of trouble? The kind that gets people killed, Dad said quietly. Kai finally looked up at me. His eyes were red, like he'd been crying. I made some bad choices, Zara. Really bad choices. I borrowed money from people I shouldn't have borrowed from. How much money? A lot, more than I could ever pay back with a normal job. How much, Kai? He was quiet for a long time. Then he whispered, $300,000. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. 300,000. What did you need that much money for? I was gambling, he said. Online poker, sports betting, casino games. I thought I could win it all back. I thought I was smart enough to beat the system. But you weren't. No, I lost everything. My savings, my credit cards, money I borrowed from friends. And when I couldn't pay it back, I went to these people. They said they'd lend me the money to pay off my other debts. But they weren't normal lenders, Mom said. No, Kai shook his head. They were criminals. Real criminals. The kind who hurt people when they don't get their money back. Dad pulled out his phone and showed me pictures. These are the messages they sent us. The messages made my blood run cold. Pictures of our house. Pictures of Mom and Dad at the grocery store. Pictures of me walking to my car after work. All with messages that said things like, "We know where you live," and "Pay up or everyone suffers." They threatened all of us, Mom said. They said if Kai didn't pay them back, they'd hurt the whole family. They knew where we lived, where we worked, where you taught school. When did this start? I asked. 2 years ago, Dad said. Right after Kai's gambling debts got out of control. At first, they just wanted their money back. But then the interest started piling up. 300,000 became 400,000, then 500,000. And now he owes them almost $1 million, Mom whispered. I looked at Kai. $1 million? How is that even possible? The interest compounds every month, he said. 20% interest every month. If you miss a payment, it doubles. I haven't been able to make a payment in over a year. So you decided to steal my identity to buy a house? We decided to help Kai disappear, Dad said. The house isn't just a place to live. It's a safe house. Somewhere these people can't find him. But why my identity? Why not get a loan in your own names? Mom and Dad looked at each other. Because our credit isn't good enough, Dad said. We had to use our retirement money and Mom's inheritance just to help Kai with his debts. We maxed out our credit cards, took out loans against the house. We have nothing left. But you have perfect credit, Mom said. You've always been so careful with money, so responsible. You were our only hope. So you decided to ruin my life to save his? We decided to save our family, Dad said. All of us, including you. By committing fraud? By keeping you alive, Kai said. These people don't care that you're innocent. They see you as part of the family. If they can't get to me, they'll go after you or Mom and Dad. I felt sick, so now I'm in danger because of your gambling problem. Now you're in danger because we're family, Mom said. And families protect each other. But there's more, Dad said quietly. There's something else we haven't told you. My heart sank. What else? The reason we adopted you, Mom said, the reason we brought you into our family when you were 3 years old, It wasn't just because we wanted another child. What do you mean? Dad pulled out a folder I'd never seen before. Your birth parents were in witness protection. They were testifying against some very bad people. People who wanted them dead. What does that have to do with me? They're the same people Kai owes money to, Mom whispered. The same criminal organization. When we adopted you, we promised to keep you safe from them. We promised to never let them find you. But now they know who I am, Kai said. Because of me. Because of my debts. I led them right to you. I couldn't breathe. You're saying that the people who wanted to kill my birth parents are the same people who want to kill you? We're saying, Dad said, that this isn't just about Kai's gambling debts anymore. This is about a 20-year-old promise we made to keep you safe. A promise we're breaking just by having you here. But we had to tell you, Mom said, because now you're part of this whether we want you to be or not. I looked around the table at my family, at the people who had raised me, loved me, protected me for 22 years, and now they were telling me that everything I thought I knew about my life was a lie. Who were my birth parents? I asked. People who tried to do the right thing, Dad said. People who paid the price for standing up to criminals. Are they still alive? The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. I'm sorry, Zara, Mom whispered. We should have told you sooner. We should have prepared you for this day. What day? The day you'd have to choose, Kai said. Between turning us in and keeping us safe. Between doing what's right and doing what's family. I stood up from the table. My legs felt weak, but I needed to move. I needed to think. I needed to understand what they were really asking me to do. You want me to let you keep this house, I said. You want me to pretend I took out this loan. You want me to let my credit be destroyed and my future be ruined so that Kai can hide from criminals. We want you to help us keep this family together, Mom said. We want you to help us keep everyone alive, even if it means sacrificing my life. Your life isn't being sacrificed, Dad said. It's being protected, just like we've always protected you. But I could see in their eyes that they still weren't telling me everything. Even now, even after all these revelations, there was still one more secret. One more piece of the puzzle they were keeping from me. And somehow I knew that final secret would be the worst one of all. I left that house feeling like my whole life was a lie. Everything I thought I knew about myself, about my family, about why I was adopted, it was all connected to criminals and threats and secrets that went back 20 years. But the worst part wasn't learning about my birth parents, or the dangerous people, or even Kai's gambling problem. The worst part was the way my family looked at me when I said I needed time to think. Time to think about what? Mom asked. About whether I'm going to report this to the police. The silence that followed was like a slap in the face. They all stared at me, like I'd said something horrible, like I was the one doing something wrong. You can't, Mom said finally. Zara, you can't go to the police. Why not? What Kai did is illegal. What you all did is illegal. Identity theft is a crime. And it won't protect us either, Mom added. They'll come after all of us, including you. I looked at Kai. Is that what you want? You want me to let my credit be ruined? My future be destroyed, so you can hide from people you owe money to? What about keeping me safe? What about my life, my future, my dreams? We'll fix this, Dad said quickly. We'll find a way to transfer the loan to Kai's name eventually. We'll make all the payments. You won't lose anything. I'll lose everything, I said. I'll lose my credit. I'll lose my ability to ever buy my own house, get my own loans, build my own life. I'll lose my trust in all of you. But you'll keep your family, Mom said. Isn't that worth more than money? I stared at her. You're asking me to sacrifice everything I've worked for, everything I've dreamed of. You're asking me to give up my future so Kai can avoid the consequences of his choices. We're asking you to save your brother's life, Dad said, by destroying mine. That's when Kai said something that made me stop cold. Zara, you don't understand. This isn't just about money anymore. If you go to the police, you're not just turning me in. You're putting yourself in more danger. What does that mean? It means that now you know about everything. You know about the debts, the threats, the safe house. In their eyes, you're part of this, whether you want to be or not. My blood went cold. Are you saying they'll come after me no matter what I do? I'm saying that your name is already on that loan. Your credit already bought this house. To them, you're just as involved as I am. I felt like I couldn't breathe. So you've trapped me. No matter what I choose, I'm in danger. We've protected you, Mom said. By keeping you in the family, by making sure you're part of our plan, we can all stay safe together. But if I go to the police, then you're on your own, Dad said quietly. And these people don't forgive, they don't forget, and they don't leave loose ends. I walked to the big window that looked out over the perfect yard. This house was beautiful. It was everything I'd ever dreamed of owning someday. But it was bought with stolen credit, paid for with my ruined future. And now it felt like a prison. How much time do I have to decide? I asked. The first payment is due next week, Kai said. $4,200. If we miss it, the bank will start asking questions. $4,000? Every month? It's a big loan. Zara, big loans have big payments. I turned around to face them. And you expect me to live with this forever? Forever knowing that there's a loan in my name that I can't afford? Forever looking over my shoulder for dangerous people? Forever sacrificing my dreams for yours? We expect you to be part of this family, Mom said. Families make sacrifices for each other. Do they? Because it seems like I'm the only one making sacrifices here. Kai gets to live in a beautiful house. You get to feel like good parents who saved their son. I get to have my life destroyed. Your life isn't destroyed, Dad said. It's just different than what you planned. Different? Dad, I'll never be able to buy my own house. I'll never be able to get married and start a family. Because what man wants a wife with terrible credit and a massive loan she can't explain? I'll never be able to do anything normal people do, because I'll be tied to this lie forever. But you'll be alive, Kai said. Isn't that what matters most? I looked at him, really looked at him. My brother, who I'd defended my whole life, who I'd helped with homework, loaned money to, covered for when he got in trouble. The brother who was now asking me to give up everything to save him from his own mistakes. I need to go, I said. Where are you going? Mom asked, panic in her voice. Home. To my apartment. To think about what you're asking me to do. Zara, please, Dad said. Don't do anything rash. Don't make any decisions when you're emotional. I've been emotional for 2 hours, I said. I think I have the right to be emotional when my family destroys my life and then asks me to be grateful for it. I walked toward the door, but Kai followed me. Zara, wait. I turned around. What? I'm sorry. I'm really, really sorry. I never wanted this to happen to you. But you did it anyway. Because I was scared. Because I didn't know what else to do. Because I thought you'd understand. Understand what? That sometimes people make mistakes. Big mistakes. And sometimes the people who love them have to help fix those mistakes, even if it ruins their own lives. Even then, he said quietly, because that's what family does. I stared at my brother, this person I'd loved my whole life, and realized I didn't know him at all. The Kai I thought I knew would never ask me to sacrifice everything for him. The Kai I thought I knew would find another way. But this Kai, the real Kai, was perfectly willing to destroy my future to save his own. I'll call you tomorrow, I said. With your decision? With my decision. I drove home in a daze, my mind spinning with everything they'd told me. Dangerous criminals, murdered birth parents, impossible debts, and a family that expected me to solve it all by giving up everything I'd ever wanted. But as I sat in my tiny apartment that night, staring at the loan papers, I kept thinking about something Kai had said, something that didn't quite make sense. He'd said these criminals knew everything about our family. They'd been watching us for 2 years. They knew where I worked, where I lived, where I went every day. So why hadn't they approached me directly? Why hadn't they threatened me themselves? If they really wanted their money back, and if they really saw me as part of the family, why work through Kai at all? And that's when I started to wonder if everything they'd told me was actually true. The next few days were the hardest of my life. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't focus at work. My students kept asking if I was okay, but how could I explain that my own family had destroyed my future, and then asked me to be grateful for it? I spent every free moment researching everything I could about identity theft, loan fraud, and credit repair. What I learned made me sick to my stomach. Even if I could prove I didn't take out the loan, it would take years to fix. My credit would be ruined for at least 7 years. I'd lose my apartment because my rent was going up and I'd never qualify for a new lease. I might even lose my job because teachers had to pass background checks, and financial fraud was a red flag. My whole life would be over. And for what? To protect a brother who'd never once asked if it was okay to use my identity. To keep peace in a family that had chosen him over me from the very beginning. But every time I picked up the phone to call the police, I heard Mom's voice, "They'll kill him, Zara. Is that what you want?" I started having nightmares. Dreams where Kai was hurt because of something I did. Dreams where Mom and Dad blamed me forever. Dreams where I was alone at family gatherings, where no one would look at me, where I was the daughter who destroyed everything. On Thursday, I got another call from the bank. A different person this time, a man named Robert, who sounded much less friendly than Linda. "Miss Chen, this is about your mortgage payment. It's now 5 days overdue." "I know," I said. "There's been a situation." "What kind of situation?" I almost told him the truth right then. Almost said that my brother had stolen my identity. And I'd never seen the house. Never signed the papers. Never agreed to any loan. But then I thought about what would happen next. Police reports, investigations, arrests, Kai in jail, Mom and Dad hating me forever. "I just need a few more days," I said. "Miss Chen, this is an $82,003 loan. The monthly payment is $4,247. With late fees, you now owe $4,497. When can we expect payment?" "Almost $4,500, more than I made in 2 months, just for one payment." "I'll have it to you by Monday," I lied. After I hung up, I called Kai. He answered on the first ring. "Zara, I was hoping you'd call. Have you decided?" The bank called. "You owe them $4,500 by Monday." "I know, Dad's handling it. He's transferring money from his retirement account." "What about next month? And the month after that? How long can Dad's retirement money last?" "We'll figure it out. We always do." "Kai, this payment is more than I make in 2 months. Even if you somehow make this payment, what about February? What about March? What about the next 30 years? Don't worry about that right now. Just worry about not going to the police." "Don't worry about it. Kai, this is my life we're talking about. And it's my life we're trying to save." I hung up on him. Actually hung up on my brother for the first time in my life. But I was so angry I couldn't see straight. That's when I decided to do something I probably should have done from the beginning. I decided to investigate their story myself. I started with the dangerous people Kai supposedly owed money to. If these criminals were real, if they were really watching our family, there would be evidence. Police reports, news stories, something. I searched online for criminal organizations in our city. I looked up loan sharks, illegal gambling, criminal threats. I found lots of general information, but nothing that matched what my family had described. Then I searched for my birth parents. Mom and Dad had said they were in witness protection, that they'd been killed by the same criminals Kai owed money to. If that was true, there would be records, news stories about their deaths, court cases about their testimony. I searched for hours. I used every search term I could think of. I checked newspaper archives, court records, even old police reports. I found nothing. No death that matched their story. No witness protection cases. No connection between any criminals and people with my birth name. Either my family was lying about my birth parents, or they were lying about everything. That's when I remembered something strange. When Kai had shown me the threatening messages on Dad's phone, I'd been too scared to look closely. But now I realized something was wrong with them. The messages had pictures of our family, but they were all old pictures. Photos from last year, maybe even 2 years ago. If these criminals had really been watching us for 2 years, wouldn't they have recent photos? Wouldn't they know about my new haircut, or Dad's new car, or the fact that Mom had started wearing glasses? And another thing, the messages were in English. Perfect English, with no spelling mistakes or strange grammar. Most criminal organizations in our city weren't run by native English speakers. The real threatening messages I'd seen in news stories were usually full of mistakes and bad grammar. The more I thought about it, the more suspicious I became. On Saturday, I drove past the house again. I parked across the street and watched for 2 hours. No one came or went. No suspicious cars drove by. No one seemed to be watching the house at all. If dangerous criminals really knew where Kai was hiding, wouldn't they be keeping an eye on the place? Wouldn't there be some sign that he was in danger? But the neighborhood was peaceful. Kids rode bikes on the sidewalk. Families walked their dogs. Old people worked in their gardens. It looked like the safest place in the world. That's when I made a decision that would change everything. I decided to test my family's story. I called Kai Sunday morning. "I've made my decision," I said. "And I'm going to the police tomorrow morning. I'm reporting the identity theft." The silence on the other end of the phone lasted so long, I thought he'd hung up. "Kai, are you there?" "You can't do this, Zara." "I can and I will. I'm not going to let you destroy my life to save yours. But the criminals, they'll kill me." "Then you should have thought about that before you stole my identity." I hung up and waited. If my family's story was true, if there really were dangerous people watching us, something would happen. They'd panic. They'd call me back immediately. They'd beg me to reconsider. Or maybe the criminals themselves would contact me. If they really saw me as part of the family, if they really knew everything about us, they'd try to stop me from going to the police. But nothing happened. My phone didn't ring. No one showed up at my apartment. No threatening messages appeared on my phone. The only thing that happened was that I finally understood the truth. My family wasn't trying to protect me from dangerous criminals. They were trying to protect themselves from the consequences of what they'd done to me. And that's when I realized something even worse. If they were lying about the criminals, if they were lying about my birth parents, what else were they lying about? What was the real reason they'd stolen my identity? What did they really need that house for? And why were they so desperate to keep me quiet? I was about to find out that the truth was so much worse than anything I'd imagined. I made the decision on a Tuesday morning while grading spelling test. One of my students, a little girl named Emma, had written about her family for a writing assignment. She described how her older brother always looked out for her, how he saved his allowance to buy her ice cream when she was sad, how he stood up to bullies at school who were mean to her. Emma wrote, "My brother says family means you protect each other. Not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. He says real love means you put the other person first, even when you don't want to." That's when I realized something that broke my heart and made me angry at the same time. Real family doesn't destroy each other to save themselves. Real love doesn't ask you to sacrifice everything while giving nothing back. And real protection doesn't come from ruining someone's life. What my family had done to me wasn't love. It was selfishness disguised as family loyalty. I put down Emma's paper and picked up my phone. I called the police station. "I need to report identity theft," I told the officer who answered. "Can you come in this afternoon? We'll need you to fill out some paperwork." "I'll be there at 3 o'clock. The next part was harder. I had to call my family and tell them what I'd done. I started with Mom. She answered on the second ring. "Hi, sweetheart. Have you thought more about everything we discussed?" "I have," I said. "I called the police. I'm filing a report this afternoon." The silence lasted so long I thought the call had dropped. Then Mom started screaming. Actually screaming, like I'd told her someone had died. "How could you do this to us? How could you destroy your own family? After everything we've done for you, after all the love we've given you, this is how you repay us." "Mom, what Kai did was illegal. What all of you did was illegal. I'm not destroying the family. You already did that when you stole my identity. We were trying to save our son by sacrificing your daughter. You're not our real daughter anyway." The words hit me like a slap. I actually gasped. "What did you say?" Mom was crying now. "I didn't mean that. I'm just upset." "You know I didn't mean that." "Yes, you did. You meant every word." I hung up and called Dad. He was quieter, but somehow worse. "I'm disappointed in you, Zara. I thought we raised you better than this. I thought you understood what family means." "You taught me what family means," I said. "You taught me that family protects each other. You taught me that good people do the right thing even when it's hard. You taught me to stand up for myself and not let people take advantage of me." "This is different." "No, it's not. You taught me these things, and now you're angry because I learned them too well." Dad sighed. "If you do this, there's no going back. If you report us to the police, you'll lose your family forever." I lost my family the day you decided Kai's future was more important than mine. I hung up and called Kai. He answered immediately, like he'd been waiting. Mom called me, he said. She's hysterical. Dad's furious. How could you do this to us? How could you do this to me? I was trying to survive. So am I. Zara, please. You don't understand what this means. If I go to jail, I'll die. These people have connections everywhere. Prison won't protect me. What people, Kai? I've been investigating your story. There are no dangerous criminals. There are no threats. There are no people watching our family. You don't know what you're talking about. I know that I searched every database I could find. I know that there's no record of our family being threatened by anyone. I know that the photos on Dad's phone were old. I know that when I threatened to go to the police, nothing happened. No one tried to stop me. No one contacted me because there is no one. Kai was quiet for a long time. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. You just signed my death sentence. I hope you can live with that. If that's true, then you signed it yourself when you stole my identity. But I don't think it is true. I think you're a liar and a thief who got caught. You'll regret this, Zara. When I'm dead, when this family is destroyed, when you're all alone, you'll regret choosing money over family. I'm not choosing money over family. I'm choosing truth over lies. I'm choosing my future over your mistakes. I'm choosing myself over people who never really loved me. I hung up and turned off my phone. I couldn't handle any more calls, any more guilt trips, any more people trying to make me feel bad for protecting myself. But even with my phone off, I could hear their voices in my head. Mom calling me selfish and ungrateful. Dad saying I was destroying the family. Kai saying I was signing his death sentence. For a moment, I almost called the police station back. I almost canceled my appointment. I almost chose to sacrifice myself to keep peace in a family that had never chosen me. But then I remembered something else. Dad used to tell me when I was little, back when I thought he was a good man who meant what he said. Good people do the right thing even when it's hard, even when it hurts, even when everyone else thinks they're wrong. I guess he forgot he taught me that. Or maybe he never meant it in the first place. At 3 o'clock, I walked into the police station. Detective Rivera was waiting for me. She was a kind woman with serious eyes who listened to my whole story without interrupting. This is serious fraud, she said when I finished. Your brother could face 5 to 10 years in prison. Your parents could be charged as accessories. Are you sure you want to proceed? I thought about Kai and his beautiful stolen house. I thought about Mom and Dad choosing him over me. I thought about a family that had raised me to be honest and then punished me for learning the lesson too well. I'm sure, I said, though my voice was shaking. We'll need you to sign some papers. We'll start the investigation immediately. And Miss Chen? Yes, you're doing the right thing. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but you are. As I signed the papers that would destroy my family, I realized something important. The people who truly loved me wouldn't have put me in this position in the first place. Real family doesn't ask you to choose between them and your own survival. And sometimes the people who matter most aren't the ones you share blood with. Sometimes they're the people who show up when everyone else walks away. I was about to find out exactly who those people were. The investigation moved fast once it started. Detective Rivera called me 3 days after I filed the report with news that made my stomach drop. Miss Chen, we've discovered some things about your brother that you need to know. Can you come to the station? When I got there, Detective Rivera had a folder full of papers spread across her desk, bank records, credit reports, legal documents. She looked serious in a way that scared me. This isn't your brother's first time using someone else's identity, she said. What do you mean? We found evidence that he's been committing identity theft for at least 3 years. He took out credit cards in your father's name 2 years ago. He forged your mother's signature on loan documents last year. He even used your cousin Marcus's social security number to rent an apartment that he trashed and abandoned. I felt sick. How much money are we talking about? Total? About $600,000 in fraudulent loans and credit cards. Your case is just the biggest one. So he really does owe people money. He owes banks money. Legitimate banks with legitimate collection processes. But Miss Chen, we've found no evidence of any criminal organization. No loan sharks, no dangerous people, no threats to your family. Detective Rivera pulled out more papers. These are the bank records for the house loan. Look at this. She showed me a timeline of payments and transfers. The money for the down payment came from selling your mother's jewelry and your father's classic car. The monthly payments have been coming from your father's retirement account. But here's the interesting part. She pointed to a series of transfers. 3 months ago, large amounts of money started going from that same account into a private investment account. An account owned by your brother. I don't understand. Your brother wasn't just stealing your identity to buy a house, Miss Chen. He was stealing it to start a business. A very profitable business. I stared at the screen. The website looked professional and legitimate. It promised investors they could double their money in 6 months. It had fake testimonials and made-up success stories. The house wasn't a safe house, Detective Rivera continued. It was his business headquarters. He's been meeting clients there, convincing them to invest their life savings. We estimate he's stolen about $2 million from 40 different families. My hands were shaking. $2 million? And it gets worse. Look at this. She showed me a list of his victims. Elderly people who'd invested their retirement money, young families who'd used their children's college funds, single mothers who'd borrowed against their homes to invest with him. These people trusted him, Detective Rivera said. They thought they were investing in a legitimate business. Instead, he stole everything they had. I couldn't speak. My brother wasn't just a gambler who'd made bad choices. He wasn't a victim of dangerous criminals. He was a professional thief who'd been destroying families for years. The dangerous people your family told you about don't exist, Detective Rivera said gently. But the victims of your brother's crimes are very real, and they're very angry. Have any of them threatened him? A few have called him demanding their money back. One man showed up at the house last month asking questions. But nothing violent, nothing criminal, just desperate people trying to get back what he stole from them. That's when I understood. The threatening messages my family had shown me weren't from criminals. They were from victims. People whose lives Kai had destroyed, trying to get their money back. There's something else, Detective Rivera said. Something about your adoption. She pulled out another folder. We looked into the story your parents told you about your birth parents being in witness protection. Miss Chen, there's no record of any of that. Your birth parents died in a car accident when you were 2 years old. You were adopted through normal legal channels. There was no witness protection, no criminal organization, no connection to your brother's current situation. I felt like the floor was disappearing under my feet. So they lied about that too? I'm afraid so. Everything they told you about dangerous criminals and protection and keeping you safe, none of it was true. I started crying then. Not just because of the lies, but because of what this meant about my family. They hadn't just stolen my identity. They'd invented an entire fake story to manipulate me into staying quiet about it. Why would they make up such an elaborate lie? I asked. Because they needed you to feel like you were in danger too? They needed you to believe that reporting the crime would put everyone at risk. It was all designed to keep you quiet while your brother continued his illegal business. Detective Rivera handed me tissues. Miss Chen, I have to ask you something difficult. Did you know about any of this? Did you ever suspect your brother was running a scam? No, I said. I had no idea. I thought he was just bad with money. I thought he was a victim. We believe you. Your financial records show you've been living paycheck to paycheck. You clearly weren't benefiting from his crimes. But even though Detective Rivera believed me, I knew not everyone would. When news of Kai's arrest broke, people would assume I was involved. They'd think I knew about the scam. They'd blame me for not stopping him sooner. The worst part was watching my extended family turn against me completely once they realized I wasn't backing down. My cousin Sarah called me a traitor. My aunt Linda sent angry text messages about how I was destroying the family over money. Even family friends who'd known me since I was 3 years old started looking at me like I was the villain in this story. Kai made mistakes, but you didn't have to ruin his life over it, my Uncle Robert said when he called. Families are supposed to stick together. He didn't just make mistakes, I said. He's been stealing from people for years. He destroyed 40 families. But he's still your brother, and those victims are still people's parents and grandparents and children. Don't they matter too? Uncle Robert hung up on me. One by one, I lost almost everyone I'd ever loved. Cousins I'd grown up with stopped speaking to me. Aunts and uncles who'd held me as a baby sent messages about how I was tearing the family apart. Even some of my coworkers started treating me differently when they heard about the investigation. I felt more alone than I'd ever felt in my life. But I also learned something important about who really cared about me. My best friend, Emma, showed up at my apartment the night after Kai's arrest with ice cream and tissues and a promise to listen to anything I needed to say. My mentor teacher, Miss Rodriguez, helped me understand my legal rights and offered to be a character witness if I needed one. Even some of my students' parents, who barely knew me, sent cards offering support when they heard what had happened. Real love doesn't ask you to destroy yourself. Real family doesn't abandon you for doing the right thing. And sometimes, the people who matter most aren't the ones you share blood with. They're the ones who show up when your whole world falls apart and help you build a new one. 6 months later, I was sitting in a courtroom watching my brother get sentenced to 4 years in prison for identity theft and fraud. Mom and Dad sat on the other side of the room, refusing to look at me. They'd hired an expensive lawyer for Kai, but never once asked how I was handling the financial mess he'd left behind. The judge was reading Kai's sentence when Detective Rivera tapped my shoulder. "We need to talk," she whispered. "There's something you need to know before this hearing ends." We stepped outside into the hallway, and she handed me a folder I'd never seen before. "We found these documents in your brother's house during the final search," she said. "I think you should see them before you hear the rest of his sentence." Inside the folder were papers that made my hands shake. Adoption papers I'd never seen, legal documents with signatures I didn't recognize, and a letter in my mother's handwriting, dated just 3 months ago. The letter was addressed to Kai, and as I read it, my world fell apart all over again. "My dearest Kai," it began. "I know this plan seems risky, but Zara's excellent credit is too valuable to waste. She's naive enough to not check her credit reports regularly, and we can handle her if she ever finds out. The girl has always been too trusting for her own good." I stopped reading and looked at Detective Rivera. "What is this?" "Keep reading," she said gently. The letter continued. "Remember, she's not legally our daughter anymore. We terminated the adoption when she turned 18 to avoid being responsible for any college loans she might take out. She doesn't know, of course. And we've let her keep thinking we're her family because she's useful. She helps with grocery money, babysits when we need her to, and takes care of us when we're sick. But legally, she's nothing to us." My vision blurred. They terminated my adoption. "There's more." The letter went on. "Once this house investment pays off and your business is established, we won't need her anymore. The life insurance policy we took out on her will be our retirement fund. $2 million should be enough for us to live comfortably while you build your investment empire." I couldn't breathe. "Life insurance policy? On me?" Detective Rivera pointed to another document in the folder. "Your brother didn't just steal your identity for the house loan, Miss Chen. Look at this." It was a life insurance policy. On me. For $2 million. Taken out 6 months before the house loan, with Kai and my parents as beneficiaries. The policy had a clause that paid double if I died in an accident. My hands started shaking so hard I dropped the papers. "They weren't just planning to ruin my credit," I whispered. "They were planning to kill me." "We believe so," Detective Rivera said quietly. "The computer we seized from your brother's house had some very disturbing search history. Research about accidents that look natural, ways to make drowning look accidental, how to cause car crashes that appear to be mechanical failures." I sat down on the hallway bench before my legs gave out. How long were they planning this? Based on the evidence, at least 8 months. The insurance policy was just the beginning. They were researching your daily routines, your driving routes, your swimming habits. They even looked into hiring someone to kill you and make it look like a robbery. Detective Rivera sat beside me. "Miss Chen, if you hadn't discovered that loan by accident, if you'd stayed quiet like they wanted you to, you might not have lived to see your next birthday." Everything clicked into place then. The reason they were so desperate to keep me quiet, the reason they invented such elaborate lies about criminals and danger, the reason they kept insisting I was part of the family, no matter what. They needed me alive just long enough to make my death look natural. And they needed me to trust them completely so I wouldn't see it coming. "The house was never about hiding from criminals," I said. "No, it was going to be their base of operations. Your brother's business headquarters and the place where they planned your murder." I started laughing then. Not because anything was funny, but because the alternative was screaming. My family, the people who'd raised me, who'd taught me right from wrong, who'd told me they loved me, had been planning to murder me for insurance money. There's one more thing, Detective Rivera said. We found evidence that they'd done this before. What do you mean? Your brother had a girlfriend 3 years ago, Rebecca Martinez. She died in a hiking accident that looks suspicious but was never investigated properly. She'd just taken out a large life insurance policy with your brother as the beneficiary. He killed his girlfriend too? We're reopening that case. But Miss Chen, the important thing is that you're safe now. They can't hurt you anymore. We went back into the courtroom just as the judge was announcing additional charges: conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, solicitation of murder. Kai's 4-year sentence became 15 years. Mom got 12 years. Dad got 10 years, partly because the evidence showed he tried to back out of the plan at the last minute, though not because he cared about me, but because he was afraid of getting caught. I testified at all 3 trials. I looked each of them in the eye and told the truth about what they'd planned to do to me. None of them apologized. Even facing prison time, they still acted like I was the one who'd wronged them. At Kai's sentencing, he looked directly at me and said, "I hope you're happy now. You destroyed our family for money." "You destroyed our family when you decided to murder me for money," I replied. Mom's lawyer tried to argue that she was just a devoted mother protecting her son. But the evidence was clear. She'd been the one to research ways to kill me. She'd been the one to suggest the life insurance policy. She'd been the one to write that letter calling me naive and useful. Dad's trial was the hardest to watch. He kept looking at me like he expected me to forgive him, to understand that he'd only been trying to keep the family together. But I couldn't forget that he'd been willing to let them kill me rather than stand up to them. The house was sold to pay back some of the money Kai had stolen from his victims. I got my credit cleared, though it took 2 years and thousands of dollars in legal fees that I couldn't afford. I had to take a second job tutoring kids after school just to pay for the lawyers. But the hardest part wasn't the money or the legal battles. It was accepting that the people I'd called family for 22 years had never really loved me at all. I'd been a useful tool to them, nothing more. And when they were done using me, they'd planned to throw me away. I moved to Portland 6 months after the trials ended. I needed a fresh start, away from all the memories and the stares and the whispers. I found a job teaching at a small elementary school where nobody knew my story. It took me a long time to trust people again. Every new friendship felt risky. Every act of kindness made me wonder what the person really wanted from me. But slowly, carefully, I built a new life. I have real friends now who care about me without wanting anything in return. I have a small apartment that's actually mine, with locks that only I have keys to. I have students who hug me when they're sad and bring me drawings of rainbows and tell me about their weekend adventures. I've learned that family isn't about blood or adoption papers or who raised you. Family is about who shows up when you need them, who tells you the truth even when it hurts, and who would never ask you to sacrifice yourself for their comfort. Sometimes people ask me if I regret turning in my family. They ask if I miss them, if I wish I'd handled things differently, if I feel guilty about them being in prison. The answer is simple. You can't miss people who were never really there. You can't regret saving your own life. And you can never be wrong for choosing truth over lies, even when the truth destroys everything you thought you knew. My name is Zara Chen. 3 years ago, my brother took out an $23,000 loan in my name to buy a house. My parents begged me to stay quiet. If I'd listened to them, if I'd chosen family loyalty over self-preservation, I'd be dead right now. I'm alive today because I learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to let people destroy you. Even when those people raised you, even when they claim they love you, even when choosing yourself means choosing to stand alone. Because being alone and alive is always better than being loved and dead. That's my story. 3 years later, I'm still learning to trust again, but I'm alive. And sometimes that's enough. I want to know, where are you listening from right now? Drop your city or country in the comments below. It means the world to know this story is reaching people everywhere who might need to hear it. If this story helped you understand that choosing yourself isn't selfish, please hit that like button. Your support helps us share more stories about finding courage when everything falls apart. And don't forget to subscribe to spread kindness to others who might be struggling with toxic family situations. Sometimes one story can change someone's life. Speaking of life-changing stories, click on the video appearing on your screen right now. You won't believe what happens next. Stay strong, stay safe, and remember, you're worth fighting for.